You were born in 1905, in the industrial hell of Essen. Your father never wore a uniform. He never rattled with metals. He was just a small cog in the vast machines of the Krupp factories, a man whose fingernails were always black with coal dust. Every evening, he came home, smelling of cheap beer and quiet despair. Your childhood was the clang of metal, your mother's cough echoing through a tuberculosis barrack, and the constant hunger twisting your stomach. Your father was a broken man. He worked 12 hours a day, and at night, he sat in silence, staring into an empty plate. You despised him for that submission. You watched sleek cars glide past the factory gates. Inside them sat wealthy men. And inside you, something began to grow. Not the class hatred of a communist, but a savage desire to become one of them. You didn't want to destroy the rich. You wanted the right to strike those weaker than you. In 1918, the empire collapsed, and whispers of a humiliating peace began to crawl through the streets. You were 13. You watched your father lose his job. A man once proud of his craft, now standing for hours in line for watery lentil soup, humbled before well-fed clerks. For you, this became the most important lesson of your life. In this world, there is no middle ground. Either you trample or you are trampled. You began building your strength, lifting scraps of rebar instead of weights. You fought in alleyways with striking workers, not because of politics, but because you despised their weakness. You listened greedily to every word of the speakers who promised order. You weren't just looking for bread. You were searching for an iron will, a will that would give you boots strong enough to stamp the rhythm of a new age into the cursed mud, soaked with rain and tears. In 1925, inside a smoky beer hall, thick with sweat and tobacco, you heard a voice that would change everything. For the son of a proletarian, the words of Adolf Hitler hit you like electricity. He did not offer pity. He offered pride. He told you that you were not garbage from the outskirts, not cannon fodder, not a replaceable cog. You were the pure blood of a great nation, a future master of the world. You joined the SS when it was still just a handful of fanatics in black caps. It wasn't only the party program that drew you in. It was the aesthetic, the severe black uniform, the gleam of silver skulls on the caps, and a discipline so absolute it felt almost religious. The moment you put on the uniform, you were no longer the son of a failed worker. You became a blonde beast, a creature of a higher order. In the training camps, you absorbed the ideology with fanatic devotion. You were taught that pity is a virus, a lie meant to weaken the will of the strong. You trained until your vision went dark, until your body became a sharpened blade. Your father looked at your uniform and muttered that those black shirts would bring disaster. But you saw it. His hand trembled as he passed you the salt across the table. In his eyes, you saw it. Fear. Fear of his own son. And that fear intoxicated you more than any schnapps. You realized a great truth. Order is not a law written on paper. Order is when people are afraid to raise their eyes to you. Street battles with communists became your university, but you were not a wild essay brawler. You didn't shout. You didn't lose control. You struck your enemies with cold, almost surgical, calm. In the basements, where interrogations were held, you discovered a disturbing talent within yourself. You could break a man's will without raising your voice, simply by looking at him with your clear, empty eyes. By 1933, when Berlin erupted with torchlight parades, you had already come a long way. SSS Untersturmfeuer. Your hands were perfectly clean, your nails carefully trimmed, and your heart cold like granite on an enemy's grave. In 1934, during the night of the Long Knives, you passed your final test. You executed your former party comrades, men who demanded a second revolution and social justice. You killed the men who reminded you of your proletarian past. You finally cut the last tie to your father's class. Now, you belonged to a new aristocracy of blood. You were assigned to the concentration camp system. DAACO. Here, you proved yourself the perfect administrator. You were not a sadistic psychopath who hurt people for pleasure. You were worse. You turned violence into a system. You calculated the prisoners' rations so they could work right up to the moment they collapsed and died. You scheduled executions with the same precision your father once used to machine parts in the factory. You married a woman considered racially acceptable. Your wedding was an SS ritual. Beneath runic banners, you looked at your wife and saw not a person, but a producer of future soldiers. Your life became sterile. Your home was spotless like an operating room. You stripped away everything human and replaced it with discipline. September 1939, Poland. You ride in an open staff car. Dust from the road settles on your immaculate black uniform. You command an Einsatzgruppe, a unit that follows behind the front lines to clean up. To you, it's simply housekeeping. You enter Jewish towns and give your orders as casually as ordering lunch. You stand at the edge of the pit, smoking an expensive cigarette, watching the machine gunners do their work. You write in your notebook, target cleared, ammunition, expenditure within limits, property confiscated. You feel like a god deciding who will live and who will become fertilizer for the new living space. Your father died in 1940, tuberculosis. You arrived at the funeral wearing the uniform of an SS Kopfsturmfeuer. The entire factory district fell silent in fear at the sight of your car. You stood at the grave, feeling nothing but disgust for the poverty around you. You didn't bury your father. You buried your past. Now, you were only SS, a piece of the black monolith. 1941, the Soviet Union. You are at the spearhead of Operation Barbarossa. But your front is not against tanks, but against civilians instead. You help develop gas vans because mass shootings are damaging the soldiers' nerves. You care about the comfort of your executioners, not the victims. You become a Standartenführer, a colonel. Now, you are an important man. You are invited to a meeting in Berlin where high officials discuss the final solution. You listen to reports about crematorium capacity and nod. We can increase efficiency by 20%. You are a manager of death. Your success is measured in tons of hair, gold teeth, and mountains of ash. Winter 1942. Near Stalingrad, you see it. For the first time, the machine is starting to stall. You see frozen, dying Wehrmacht soldiers, and you feel only contempt. Weaklings, you think. You order the execution of anyone who drops their weapon. You are the iron spine of the regime, and you believe your fanaticism will save Germany. 1944. The front is collapsing. Allied bombs are turning Germany into ruins. Your wife and children die in Dresden, burned by phosphorus. You hear the news while sitting in headquarters in Poland. You shed no tears. You simply order the remaining prisoners in the camp to be executed and the crematoriums to be destroyed. You want to erase the evidence, not out of fear of a trial, but because you refuse to hand your work to the enemy. You return to Berlin. The city looks like the broken jaw of an old man with missing teeth. You command units of the Volkssturm. Old men and children, traitors, hang from lamp posts. Signs on their chests. I did not believe in the Führer. Until the final moment, you remain loyal to discipline. Your boots still shine even as you walk over corpses. Your boots still shine even as you walk over corpses. April 1945. You are in the bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. The walls tremble from Soviet artillery. The Führer is dead. You step out into the garden where puddles of gasoline are still burning. You look up at a sky choked with smoke, and you realize your 1,000-year empire lasted 12 years. You do not flee to South America. You are a man of order. You sit in your office, put on your dress uniform, and carefully arrange your medals on the table. You write your final report to yourself. Duty fulfilled. Orders executed. Order maintained to the end. You hear the footsteps of Russian soldiers in the corridor. You take out a cyanide capsule. You are not afraid of death. You are afraid of the chaos that will come after. You bite down on the glass. Your world fades to the sound of the door being kicked open. You vanish into nothingness like a perfect instrument that finally broke but never bent. Your fingers loosen. A golden fountain pen rolls across the desk, leaving one final ink blot on the blank page. In this office, there is no longer an officer, no son of a worker, no executioner, only an empty shell in black cloth. You never understood what freedom was because your whole life you chained yourself to the steel of orders. You died the same way you lived.